They've fed you lies since birth. Lies wrapped in the language of empathy, loyalty, and sacrifice. You were told to be kind, to be open, to be available. But availability is vulnerability, and in this world, the overly available get used, not respected. You waste your time checking in, showing up, explaining yourself to people who wouldn't notice if you disappeared. That's the first crack in your power. Spreading your energy wide when it should be concentrated like a weapon. Machiavelli knew this before any modern psychology ever tried to soften the truth. The man who divides his focus is the man who loses the game. Every time you explain yourself, every time you show up to a battle that isn't yours, you drain yourself. And for what? Approval? Validation? These are the currencies of the powerless. If you want to be feared, respected, and untouchable, you must become the center of your own world. This isn't selfishness, it's strategy. The weak call it narcissism, because they can't handle someone who doesn't bend for them. But true power is quiet, focused, and internal. You don't need permission to isolate and build. You don't owe explanations for cutting off distractions. The moment you realize that your mind is the only battlefield that matters, that's when life begins to bend in your favor. Focus solely on yourself. Not out of hate, not out of revenge, but because you finally see the truth. No one is coming to save you, no one will hand you power, and no one will feel your pain the way you do. Your transformation starts the second you pull your energy back from the crowd and channel it into creation. The more you focus inward, the louder your silence becomes, and that silence terrifies them. If you're ready to stop chasing and start building, comment this now. I'm done begging for attention. I'll become the reason they crave it. This is only the beginning. In section 1, we rip the mask off the distractions disguised as love and loyalty and reveal how they were built to keep you weak. Number 1, the illusion of loyalty, how they trap you with care. They don't need to chain you to control you, they just need to convince you they care. That's the most effective trap. False loyalty wrapped in emotional language. They say things like, "I'm always here for you," but when your priorities shift, watch how they vanish. Watch how fast that loyalty fades the moment you stop serving their script. What they call friendship is often just dependency in disguise. You keep people around because they once made you feel seen, but that feeling comes with a leash. You hesitate to grow because you're afraid it might offend them, make them uncomfortable, make them jealous. So you shrink yourself, you silence your ambition, all to protect their comfort. That's not loyalty, that's slavery. And it's psychological warfare you've never been trained to detect. Niccolò Machiavelli warned of this centuries ago, that the most dangerous people are not always your enemies. Sometimes they are the closest ones, the ones who drain you slowly with a smile. They demand your time, your presence, your emotional energy, and call it love. But the second you say no, they call it betrayal. That's not love, that's control. And if you don't cut it, you'll bleed your future away. You cannot evolve while babysitting egos. You cannot rise if you're scared to be misunderstood. And you sure as hell can't transform into anything powerful while dragging dead weight that clings to your past. Every second you give to someone who isn't building with you, you subtract from your empire. Your silence is not cruelty, it's precision. Let them call it cold. Let them call it selfish. You call it strategy. If you're ready to escape emotional slavery and build something real, comment this. Their loyalty was a cage. My freedom is now ruthless. Number 2, destroy the past, reinvent or stay powerless. You are not who you were 5 years ago, not who you were last year, not even who you were this morning. But if you keep dragging that outdated identity behind you, don't be shocked when your results look exactly the same. The past only survives because you keep feeding it in your thoughts, your language, your choices. You tell people stories about who you are, but those stories are prisons. They're the chains you forged in childhood, in pain, in fear, and you keep polishing them like they're gold. The world isn't holding you back, you are. You keep showing up as the version of yourself that everyone expects. The nice guy, the helper, the overthinker, the apologizer. That version gets nothing but rejection and disappointment because people already read your script before you speak, and predictable men are forgettable men. You want transformation? Then vanish. Burn the script. Re-enter the world with a mask of mystery, a mind of silence, and eyes that no longer ask for permission. Machiavelli didn't wait for the world to recognize his value. He created systems that forced the world to adapt to his power. He knew reinvention wasn't vanity, it was survival. You think being consistent makes you reliable? No, it makes you easy to map, easy to use, easy to eliminate. Real power lives in unpredictability, in showing up different, in evolving so violently your enemies no longer recognize you, and your old self becomes untraceable. You don't owe the world an explanation. You owe yourself a revolution. Let the weak cry about changing too much. Let the familiar beg for the version of you that kept them comfortable. But you evolve in silence. You move in shadows. You erase your past not with excuses, but with ruthless action. When they ask what happened to the old you, you say, "He died when I realized nobody cared unless I was useful." And that's your key to freedom, usefulness. Become so powerful, so focused, so quietly dangerous, that people feel something shift when you walk into a room. That's not ego, that's engineered presence. And it only happens when you stop clinging to a self you've outgrown. Kill your past, bury it deep. Because the man you need to become doesn't need approval, he needs isolation, silence, and warlike commitment. Comment this now if you're ready to burn your old identity to the ground. My past doesn't own me, I build what terrifies them. Because in next part we go deeper into emotional detachment and why the ability to feel nothing at the right time is the deadliest power you'll ever own. Number 3, emotional detachment. How to become untouchable without going numb. Most people are slaves to how they feel. Anger controls their tongue, fear controls their decisions, desire controls their focus. And then they wonder why they're so easy to manipulate. The moment someone can predict your reaction, they own you. And the moment they can trigger an emotion, they can use it to build their agenda, not yours. You were taught that feeling deeply makes you human, but no one told you that it also makes you weak unless you learn to control it. Emotional detachment doesn't mean you feel nothing. It means you feel things, but you choose which emotions serve you and which ones are discarded like a broken sword in battle. Because when you're emotionally reactive, you're not living, you're being puppeteered. Machiavelli once said, "A wise man should appear merciful, faithful, humane, sincere, and religious, but be inwardly the opposite when necessary." Why? Because the world rewards appearances, not sincerity. Emotional detachment is your armor. When the world screams for you to react, to break down, to expose what rattles you, you stay silent. Because the man who doesn't flinch when insulted terrifies those who rely on chaos. When someone tries to make you angry, it's not personal, it's strategic. They're testing your self-control. When someone ghosts you, disrespects you, or ignores you, it's not betrayal, it's information. And most of you turn that data into suffering. You beg for closure, you seek explanations, you spiral over things you can't control, and in doing so, you hand them the emotional knife to cut you over and over. But when you detach, when you stop responding emotionally and start studying people like a strategist, you become immune to their games. The insults roll off, the flattery becomes meaningless. The manipulations are so obvious it's laughable. You are no longer pulled by approval or crushed by rejection. You sit at the center of your own gravity, calm, cold, calculating. Emotional detachment allows you to say no without guilt, to walk away without leaving a door open, to burn bridges that only led to places you already outgrew, and most importantly, it gives you space. Space to think, space to rebuild, space to channel all your energy into power, not into chasing, explaining, or pleasing, but into absolute control over your reactions. You think being emotional makes you real? No. It makes you readable, predictable, weak. The most powerful men you know, the ones who dominate rooms with just their presence, they're not loud, they're not expressive, they're silent. And silence, when mastered, becomes psychological violence, because it forces the world to guess what you're thinking and fear what you're planning. If you want to be unbreakable, you must master emotional detachment, not by becoming numb, but by becoming selective. Cold where it counts, calm where it hurts, and focused when others fall apart. That's not emptiness, that's evolution. That's how you become the man who can't be manipulated, because nothing owns you, not praise, not rejection, not pain. Comment this now if you're done being emotionally readable. They can trigger everyone else. I'm unshakable. Number 4, environment engineering, how to eliminate everything that weakens you. You think your mindset is yours, but it's not. You think your thoughts are private, but they're programmed. Every sound, every voice, every screen, every room. It all shapes how you think, what you value, what you chase. Your environment is not just where you live, it's what lives inside you. And if you don't control it, it will control you. Look around. Your so-called comfort zone is a psychological trap designed to make you soft. You sleep in a bed you didn't earn, scroll past images that poison your mind, and surround yourself with people who drain your focus, then call it normal. There's no war going on outside. The war is already inside. The enemy isn't external, it's your environment, quiet, familiar, and designed to keep you forgettable. Yes. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this deeply, that the power of a prince is not just in his will, but in what he allows to surround him. Every object, every influence, every relationship, they either serve your rise or sabotage it. There is no neutral. The chair you sit in, the background noise, the friends you tolerate, the clutter on your desk, all of it is either sharpening your mind or dulling your edge. You want to become untouchable? Then become obsessed with engineering your world ruthlessly. Start with silence. Silence is your first tool, because without silence you can't hear your own strategy. Then, strip distractions, one by one. Every useless notification, every weak conversation, every room that reminds you of failure, clutter, laziness, or dependence, remove it, burn it, replace it with space that commands presence. Your room is a mirror of your mind. If it's messy, you are. If it's noisy, you are. If it's filled with meaningless things and empty entertainment, that's not coincidence. That's a reflection. And until you clean that environment, you'll stay stuck. You'll keep waking up exhausted. You'll keep craving dopamine. You'll keep mistaking stimulation for power. And they'll keep laughing, watching you sabotage yourself with your own setup. You think watching motivational content for 10 minutes will change your life, but your room is whispering weakness into your subconscious for 10 hours. Your desk, your wall, your phone, it's all sending signals. Most of them are saying the same thing. Stay the same, be passive, don't change. And unless you rewire that battlefield, you're not going anywhere. Now let's talk people. Who do you allow near your energy? Who gets to speak into your day? If they aren't disciplined, focused, or evolving, why are they in your space? You don't need permission to detach. You don't need drama to walk away. Just study their habits, their language, their mindset. And if it reflects your past instead of your future, you cut ties, quietly, without debate, without guilt. Power isn't just about what you add, it's about what you subtract. Subtract comfort, subtract chaos, subtract weak voices. That's how you sharpen focus. That's how you build a kingdom no one can reach, because they don't even recognize the terrain you operate in anymore. And that's the point. You were never meant to blend in. You were meant to design a world that bends to your command. So stop apologizing for isolating. Stop explaining why you vanished. Stop negotiating with people who live in distraction. You don't owe them a warning. You owe yourself results. When you walk into your room, your energy should rise, not drain. When you open your phone, it should give clarity, not confusion. That's the mark of a man who understands. The mind is programmable, and he's the programmer. Comment this now if you're done letting your environment decide your future. I don't adapt to chaos. I design power. Number 5. The time killer. How seconds become regret in disguise. Every second you waste is a betrayal. Not to others, to yourself. You think time is flexible. You think you'll get more later. You think because you're young, the clock is on your side. But let me give you the truth that most men don't learn until it's too late. Time isn't patient. Time isn't kind. Time is a silent executioner. Every hour you spend on nonsense, scrolling, waiting, reacting, is a blade against your own potential. You weren't born with power. You weren't born with influence. You weren't born with leverage. The only currency you had at birth was time, and the only difference between the powerful and the forgotten is how they spent it. That's it. Same 24 hours. Different discipline. Same clock. Different obsession. The weak spend time, the powerful invest it, and you better learn the difference before the clock makes the choice for you. Niccolò Machiavelli never wrote in a rush. He planned, he studied, he maneuvered, because he knew time wasn't something to kill, it was something to weaponize. Every minute can be sharpened into strategy. But you let it bleed out in group chats, on Netflix, in dead conversations and aimless swiping. You call it relaxing, I call it suicide, slow, polite, and completely avoidable. Here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not tired, you're distracted, you're not burnt out, you're unstructured, you're not stuck. You're just wasting time on people and habits that do nothing for your evolution. The mind doesn't get stronger with age, it gets lazier without pressure. And the more you entertain weakness, the more your time becomes a leash, not a ladder. You want a better life, you want discipline, control, and power? Then start tracking your time like a king tracks his gold. Because every second is either building your throne or someone else's. And let me make this crystal clear. If you're not in control of your hours, you're not in control of your life. And if you're not in control of your life, then someone else is. Look at your day. Look at how much of it is consumed by reaction, not design. You wake up and check your phone before your own thoughts. You eat while scrolling. You walk while scrolling. You breathe while scrolling. Your time isn't yours anymore. It belongs to algorithms, ads, and digital dopamine. That's not living. That's programming, and you're the product. But here's the good news. Time is loyal to the ruthless. The moment you cut the fat, the useless tasks, the fake emergencies, the mental clutter, time opens up like a sword from its sheath. You'll find hours where others find excuses. You'll build when others rest. You'll evolve while they distract themselves into decay, because time doesn't care who you are. It only respects what you do with it. You don't need more hours in the day. You need to kill what's stealing them. That means cutting off people who talk more than they act. That means deleting apps that give you nothing but brain fog. That means owning your mornings, defending your nights, and protecting your schedule like a battlefield. Because that's exactly what it is. And only the strategic survive. Discipline is not just about motivation, it's about elimination. It's about subtracting everything that delays your rise. Want to wake up early? Go to sleep without distraction. Want to build a skill? Turn off the noise. Want to dominate in silence? Then let silence become your standard. Because while they chase validation, you're chasing time. And that's why they'll always be behind you. Too late, too loud, too lost. You don't have to move fast, but you do have to move with direction. There's a difference between motion and progress, between being busy and being dangerous. The world is full of busy fools, running in circles, chasing comfort, burning daylight to feel productive. But the one who sits in stillness, plans with clarity, and executes without emotion, that's the one who wins. And that's what you're becoming. Not a time manager, not a productivity nerd, but a tactician, a strategist who understands that the most violent act of self-love is reclaiming your time without apology. You don't need to explain why you're unavailable. You don't need to feel guilty for turning your phone off. You don't need permission to protect your time like it's sacred, because it is. If you're done letting your future die one distraction at a time, comment this now. My time is a weapon. I spend it on power, not people. Because in next section we go into one of Machiavelli's darkest truths, why helping others too much isn't noble, it's dangerous, and how self-sacrifice is the trap that turns lions into servants. Number 6. The charity trap. Why helping everyone destroys you. They taught you that being helpful makes you good, that sacrificing your time, energy, and attention for others is what gives your life meaning, that to be respected you must serve. But here's what they never told you. Most people don't respect generosity, they exploit it. And the more you give, the more invisible you become. Because in the real world, usefulness is temporary, and self-sacrifice is the fastest path to becoming disposable. You think being the reliable one gives you power, but Machiavelli would laugh at that idea. Because the man who is always available becomes the man who is never valued. You keep solving other people's problems, thinking it builds connection, but all it builds is quiet resentment. They take your help, your advice, your time, and the second you say no, they call you selfish. That's not loyalty. That's dependency in disguise. Look closer. Who benefits when you overextend? Who gains when you prioritize others over yourself? Not you, because while you're busy helping them chase their goals, your own goals starve. While you're fixing their chaos, your life sits still. You've been brainwashed into thinking that saying yes makes you noble, but in power psychology, the man who cannot say no is not noble. He's weak, and weakness is always punished. The truth is brutal. The more you help, the more they expect. You train them to take, you condition them to drain you. And worst of all, you start to feel guilty for choosing yourself. That's how deep the trap runs. You lose yourself inside their problems. You become a tool in their survival. You turn into a background character in your own story. And they don't even notice. They just keep asking for more. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote extensively on this dynamic, that rulers should be cautious in doing favors, because the favorer becomes a debtor, and the helped often grow entitled. That's what's happening to you. Every time you step in to fix what isn't your responsibility, you lower your own status. And if you keep doing it, you lose the one thing that creates power: scarcity. Your time should feel expensive. Your energy should feel earned. Your attention should feel rare. That's how value is built, not by being everywhere, not by being everything for everyone, but by making your presence a privilege. When you do that, people shift. They rise to meet your standards, or they fall off, and both outcomes are exactly what you want. Helping people isn't evil, but overhelping is. The difference is this: power moves with intention. Weakness moves with impulse. You help when it's strategic, when it serves your mission, when it elevates you, not just them. But if you're helping out of guilt, fear, or the need to feel useful, then you're not helping, you're surrendering. You were not born to babysit chaos. You were not built to fix broken people who refuse to fix themselves. You were built to dominate your world, to evolve beyond your past, to command your environment. And that requires a level of detachment the average man can't even comprehend. You help when it's earned. You give when it's deserved. You walk away without flinching when it isn't. You want to be feared, valued, respected? Then learn to say no, without emotion, without apology, without long explanations. You are not here to be liked. You're here to win. And you don't win by pouring into others until you're empty. You win by sharpening yourself until your presence alone forces others to evolve or exit. Your kindness has been mistaken for softness. Your empathy has been used as leverage. And your time has been drained like it meant nothing. But not anymore. From this moment forward, you help only when it builds power. You give only when it multiplies return. You walk with people who carry their own weight, or you walk alone. Comment this now if you're done sacrificing yourself for people who never sacrifice for you. I'm not a tool for the unfocused. My help is earned, not given. Number 7. The silent force. How to dominate a room without saying a word. Most people think power is loud. They think it's in the voice, in the speech, in the endless words that try to prove something, but real power doesn't try. It doesn't explain. It doesn't announce itself. It enters, it watches, and it controls the room before it even speaks. That's what presence is. The unspoken pressure of someone who doesn't chase approval, someone who doesn't need noise to be noticed. You've seen it. The man who walks in and suddenly the air feels different. He's not smiling, he's not performing, he's not entertaining. He's just there, grounded, unbothered, unreadable. That is not charisma. That is control. Control over his energy, control over his emotions, control over his own image. And that control forces the world to adapt to him. That's psychological dominance without aggression, and that's what you're going to master. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. The strongest men are often the most quiet, because the moment you speak, you risk revealing something. You give away your thinking, your position, your fear. But silence? Silence is strategic. It builds tension. It creates mystery. It forces others to guess, and in that guessing, you gain power. Because you become a question they can't answer. Stop filling space with noise. Stop explaining yourself before anyone even asks. Stop giving away emotional tells through facial reactions, fidgeting, or over-smiling. That's not confidence, that's insecurity disguised as friendliness. And the more you do it, the more you shrink. Presence is built when you say nothing and mean everything. When your body speaks calm, your face stays unreadable, and your vibe says, I don't need to be here. I choose to be. This is where the average man fails. He tries to be liked. He tries to connect. He tries to over-deliver, over-talk, and overshare. Why? Because he fears being misunderstood. But the man who fears being misunderstood will never be respected. If you want people to feel something when you enter a room, stop trying to control their opinion. Start controlling your presence. Your energy enters before your words ever do. Your posture speaks louder than your voice. Your eye contact communicates more than paragraphs ever could. And your silence, it screams. When you master silence, you shift the dynamic. Others speak to fill the discomfort. They reveal themselves while trying to understand you. That's how you win without confrontation. You let them expose themselves while you remain a mirror they can't decode. There is nothing more intimidating than a man who doesn't flinch. A man who hears insult but reacts with stillness. A man who gets praise but doesn't light up like a puppy. A man who stands firm, focused, calm, like his entire mind is one clear line of strategy. You think that requires arrogance? No, it requires discipline. Deep internal stillness, control over your own emotions, your own urges, your own need to be seen. Here's the truth. People are scanning you constantly. They're watching how fast you speak, how much you blink, how often you shift, how needy your energy feels. And most of you are screaming insecurity with every breath because no one taught you how to hold presence. But now you know. Now you understand that presence is held, not projected. And it only happens when your internal world is colder, calmer, and more committed than anything outside of it. You don't chase attention, you create gravity. You don't beg for space, you own it, without ever asking. And that doesn't come from ego, it comes from mastery. Mastery of your time, your silence, your detachment. And once you lock that in, you'll watch people adjust themselves around you, nervously, respectfully, subconsciously. That's real power. Not what you say, but what they feel when you say nothing. If you're done talking your power away and ready to command without noise, comment this. My silence speaks louder than their performances. Because in next section we go into the final transformation, the ruthless discipline of self-interest. Why focusing on you without guilt is the most powerful rebellion left in this world. Number 8. Ruthless self-interest. why putting yourself first is the final form of power. They've convinced you that thinking of yourself is wrong, that self-interest is selfish, that focusing on your goals while ignoring the emotional chaos of others makes you a bad person. But let's get something clear. If you keep putting others before yourself, you'll wake up one day empty, forgotten, and used. Not because they were evil, but because you allowed it. Because you thought sacrificing yourself would somehow lead to appreciation. It doesn't. It leads to irrelevance. Niccolò Machiavelli didn't teach men to be cruel, he taught them to be clear. Clear about power, clear about results, clear about human nature. And at the core of that clarity is this law. People will use you as long as you make yourself available. The minute you stop focusing on you, they start focusing on what they can extract. That's not negativity, that's reality. And if you don't build your life around that truth, you'll get played every time. You were taught that being selfless is a virtue, that you should drop everything when others need you, that your life should revolve around being useful. But let me ask you this, what happens when you need support? When you break down? When you go silent? Exactly, you vanish, and the world keeps spinning. No parade, no rescue mission, just silence. That's when most men learn you are either your own priority or you are nobody's. Self-interest doesn't mean hurting others. It means refusing to hurt yourself to please them. It means putting your goals, your health, your discipline, and your future above their drama, their distractions, and their manipulation. Because you only get one life, and you're wasting it explaining why you're finally choosing yourself. Stop. You don't need permission to evolve. You need the discipline to protect it. Most people want you to stay soft, available, and constantly helping. Why? Because that version of you benefits them. It makes their life easier. But the moment you stop showing up to fix their chaos, suddenly you're the villain. Suddenly you're distant, selfish, cold. That's how you know you're doing it right. Because putting yourself first will always offend the ones who relied on you putting yourself last. You can't build an empire while babysitting. You can't conquer anything while explaining your every move to people who've never built anything. And you sure as hell can't transform if you're emotionally tethered to people who fear your independence. So cut the guilt, kill the approval-seeking, and walk with one truth in your spine. If it doesn't serve your purpose, it doesn't deserve your time. Self-interest gives you the power to say no without debate. It gives you the clarity to choose discomfort now for power later. It gives you the focus to endure loneliness because you're building something that requires isolation. And that kind of power, that kind of locked-in, laser-focused energy, it makes people uncomfortable because they can't control it, they can't access it, they can't stop it. Most men want to be liked. You're not most men. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be remembered. And you don't get remembered by being everything to everyone. You get remembered by becoming a force. Untouchable, unapologetic, undeniable. And that only happens when you focus solely on yourself with ruthless consistency. Let the world call it selfish. Let them call it arrogant. Let them misunderstand your silence, your detachment, your boundaries. You're not here to convince them. You're here to win without their validation. Because in the end, power doesn't ask to be understood. It just moves. And those who can't keep up fall behind and complain. So the next time someone tries to guilt you into breaking your focus, ask yourself, does this benefit me long term? Or does it distract me from who I'm becoming? If it's a distraction, cut it. If it's emotional bait, walk away. If it's slowing you down, you already know the answer. You don't compromise with weakness, you eliminate it. Comment this now if you're done sacrificing your power for temporary peace. I serve no one's agenda but my own. Number 9, the final form, when you become the weapon. This is where it all converges. The silence, the detachment, the elimination, the precision. This is where you stop trying to change and start being changed. Not a better version of the old you, a completely different entity, one built on focus. one powered by indifference, one immune to validation, unaffected by rejection, untouched by noise. You don't just grow, you sharpen. You become unrecognizable, even to your past self. Most people think transformation is about doing more, but Machiavelli knew it's about doing less with more intensity. It's about cutting, subtracting, simplifying, until what remains is lethal. The man who focuses solely on himself doesn't just win, he becomes the standard. He no longer reacts, he no longer explains, he no longer pleads to be seen. He is seen, without saying a word, because the energy he holds speaks louder than language ever could. By now you've already felt it, that shift, that voice in your head that says, "I'm done begging. I'm done explaining. I'm done performing for people who wouldn't bleed for me." That's not ego. That's clarity. That's the birth of the real you. Not the version molded by family, teachers, friends, or society, but the version you chose to become through silence, sacrifice, and brutal inner war. You don't need more advice. You don't need more motivation. You need isolation. Deep, sacred, violent isolation. The kind that pulls your focus inward until your distractions die from lack of attention, until your cravings dissolve, until your excuses evaporate, until the only voice left in your mind is your own, and it speaks with command, not confusion. Now, you're no longer seeking freedom. You are freedom. Because no one owns you. No one controls your emotions. No one has a leash on your time, your energy, your focus. You've detached from everything soft, and you've chosen the path of power, the cold path, the silent path. The one where they call you selfish, arrogant, antisocial, and yet they can't stop watching, can't stop wondering how you became so untouchable. This is what happens when you obey Machiavelli's coldest law of power. Focus solely on yourself, not as a trend, not for a week, but as a lifelong doctrine. You become hard to access, impossible to manipulate, emotionally invisible to the weak. You show up in places they never imagined, achieving things they never thought you'd reach, and you do it without them. Without noise, without compromise. Let them misunderstand you, let them label you. That's their language, weakness. Yours is action, silence, mastery. You don't clarify who you are. You become something so unexplainable it breaks their frameworks. While they drown in opinions, you rise through discipline. While they chase attention, you build empires. And while they ask, what happened to you? You've already moved on to your next transformation. Your goals now aren't about proving anyone wrong. That phase is dead. You've stepped beyond revenge. Now it's about proving yourself right. About designing a world so exact, so cold, so tailored to your mind that no one else can breathe in it unless you allow it. That's power. And that's where you're headed, if you stay focused. This is your final warning and your greatest invitation. Guard your focus like your life depends on it, because it does. The enemy doesn't come with a gun. It comes with a notification, a distraction, a harmless conversation, a casual friend request. And if you're not alert, you'll slip, you'll soften, and you'll return to the average. But if you stay cold, you stay locked in, then nothing can touch you. You don't need a throne to be a king. You don't need followers to have influence. You don't need anyone's recognition to become legendary. All you need is a mind that cannot be hijacked and a life that cannot be accessed without purpose. So here's the last command. Disappear into your mission. Rewire your environment, cut the noise, kill the old identity, reject everything that pulls you off course, no matter how small. And remember, you were never here to serve the world. You were here to conquer your own. Comment this now if you're done explaining yourself to the world. I don't need to be understood. I'm here to be unreachable. Like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and never forget this one law. The more you focus on yourself, the more the world bends to you.